The stress and intensity of that time, it crippled me. It brought me to my knees. I was already burnt out. And then I became an utter shell of myself.
Are we reaching for the wrong tools to modulate our energy? And what would be the right tools to do it?
It's such an important question. I'm trying to unlock potential. Why? Because it's so satisfying. It's so satisfying just to feel yourself come alive.
Why do you think it is so difficult to get this adoption? You know it, I know it, the data shows it, but getting adoption of this at an elite level, whether it be in business or sport, frankly, is a handful.
And I feel like I know why now. Designing things to function like a machine, looking at things in parts rather than wholes, it's creating the human energy crisis. So the true solve is to start.
Welcome back to the 90% Healthy Podcast. Today's topic is something that is going to impact every single person on the planet. It is something we all juggle. Most of us probably don't do it right because data is showing we are more burnt out than ever. And we're not really good at managing our energy in a way to serve us the right way for long term. So we have today a special guest, Jessica Corbin from SORCE.io. And we will go into a lot of the things that she's doing, but we were just chatting at the beginning of the off record and talking how important of the work that she's doing with her team to really help people reclaim their energy and become energy literate. I love that word, and I have not heard it, so I can't wait to dive deeper. So Jessica, can you tell us a little bit about the genesis of where all of this came from, and why do you think it is so essential to our society right now?
So nice to be with you both. I had to solve my own problem, which was burnout. And the burnout for me originated back when I was competing athletically. So I was a cross-country and track athlete. I was recruited by UCLA, where I committed. I ran with the Olympic torch back in high school, and I just had a lot of success early. And I had a lot of willingness to do the work, to dig in and pick up those, 1% gains wherever I could. The issue was that MO, that way of being was a bit limited in the way I was going about it, because it became about doing everything that I was doing, and I wasn't creating enough room for recovery and just being. I was so excited about what I could accomplish through my efforts, but I had no idea about the importance of also having pockets of effortlessness and parasympathetic nervous system support. And it really took a major life event where my brother was in a coma for a year and a half, and we held a bedside vigil around his bedside for that year and a half. There was always a family member with him. And the stress and intensity of that time, it crippled me. It brought me to my knees. I was already burnt out. And then I became an utter shell of myself. But it was confusing because I had access to the world's greatest coaches on how to be the most vital, performance-rich person as I could. And I still was finding myself aching and debilitated. And so there were two places I could go to get relief. One was my yoga mat. So I'm a devout yogi of 26 years. And that just gave me a place where I could be a bit introspective and really start to work on what is now known as interoception. But the other place I could go to get relief was my acupuncturist. And he would do a 3-finger pulse assessment. And, in Eastern medicine with acupuncture, they're doing 3 fingers and they're doing 4 layers deep. They're picking up on so much information that the body is emitting through the pulse. And he would be like, okay, your chi is really strong today. You can actually effort and run hard. Or he would say, your chi is really wiry today. You need to do yin yoga or rest and recover. And that was my light bulb moment. What are you assessing in my pulse, and how can I do that for myself every single day? And from the Eastern standpoint, it requires the human hand. It's an art. But there was a proxy on the Western side, and this is back in 2011. So I was desperate to find what is the proxy, what can we actually use to do what this guy was doing, and heart rate variability really close. And so I drained my 4K and I committed everything to getting my first product to market at that time. And I've just been iterating on what actually solves the problem, which we can get into more as we go, because solving this problem is so much more than just an individual doing good self-care. And I'll just tease that and we can unpack that as we go.
That is fantastic. And Don, you've met Jessica a few years ago, I assume, right?
Yeah, you know what? It was one of the great things. Klaudia, you and I met out in Southern California at a biohacking event, and we immediately connected. I mean, I remember when you walked in front of our booth and we were introduced, and I'm like, okay, we were vibing right away. And I was at another event a couple years later, and Christy was there with her Jessica was there with her business partner, Christy, and it was like, bam, our energies just connected, and it was so cool. And we've had these conversations. So when we had the opportunity to get her on the podcast, I'm like, we have to do this, because Jessica's done this really cool thing, taking what she learned. I love the story of the 3-finger pulse, how this person was assessing your autonomic status. And I don't know how they do it. I don't have that capability, but I can use technology now. And when I hear the story, I'm like, man, this just goes hand in hand. And for our listeners, you heard us do a podcast last week with Dr. Nawaz Habib talking about vagal nerve stimulation and vagal nerve development. So this is in the same place. And what is so cool about it is that you're changing people's lives simply by changing their awareness and their own personal energy. And again, as a scientist, we call it autonomic balance. But as a layperson, we call it energy. But Jessica's been able to turn this into a really cool business called SORCE.io. And so let's spend a little bit of time talking about that.
Thank you for the tee up. It is so fun to feel your energy, Don. You always bring it. So SORCE, again, along kind of the iterative path, I got my first product to market, but I didn't know how to market, so it fell flat. Then I meet Christy, and I was coaching individuals, just much more kind of in a movement and mindfulness capacity, one-to-one, because I was so passionate just about creating some form of an impact, and working one-to-one felt very good at the time. She met me and asked me to lunch immediately. She goes for what she wants. So she's like, what is this thing? And who are you? And let's get in there. And she immediately was like, I think we should partner, because she was a board certified nutritionist and I was bringing the mindfulness and the movement. And we created a company called Ep25. And we would, again, here in Venice Beach, we would just work with individuals in a group. And then in a group setting, we would take them through how to transform your body and revitalize your life. One of our users ended up being the head of HR at Activision Blizzard. And she said, this is a slam dunk corporate health solution. We want to pilot it. And I was like, my goodness, I just didn't have it on my radar. And when I thought about it, I realized fairly quickly that with the data that we were gathering, if we could configure it in a way that kept everybody's privacy completely private, which we can, we could visualize the nervous system of teams and cultures. And that's what we have done. So then we basically had to redo the whole platform to meet those privacy and security policies, and just kind of upgrade the content strategy in it, how we coach people through the experience. And then we launched SORCE in 2020. Right during the pandemic, which was actually fine timing for us, though, because everybody was remote. And how was a leader supposed to get a pulse check on the team when everybody is remote? We offered that solution. So then we ended up starting to work with Mars and Autodesk, Activision Blizzard, Accenture. We're now working with Unilever. So we're working with major organizations at this time, really helping people, again, become people, teams, organizations, become what we now call energetically literate, which is the ability to understand, to manage, and renew energy.
What are some of the things you come across with when you start to talk to people about energy? Because I often feel like people think they are in control because I'm going to drink the coffee, the energy drink to give me energy. And then I'm just going to pop a melatonin so I can downregulate and go to sleep. I don't need the energy. So are we reaching for the wrong tools to modulate our energy? And what would be the right tools to do it?
It's such an important question, and we could talk about this one for a very long time. Because the truth of the matter is that bioindividuality is real. And the truth of the matter is that energy is multidimensional. So what we really like to champion is that we leverage science to support the self-discovery. And there are certain things that we can kind of put our stake in the ground and that we can, know, I would say in a more traditional sense. And then we like to also bring heaps of curiosity to the table, giving people total permission to run experiments. So what I would say is the biggest block is that people don't understand that what could block energy is actually a mindset as much as it is about a nutritional deficiency. So, and what HRV is doing is it's a leading indicator for all stress-related cause, health, disease, dysfunction, and mortality. So HRV is like your check engine light, providing a readiness score of like how much overall effort your body-mind vehicle can endure and sustain on a day-to-day basis. And we really want people to start to modulate intensity based on that readiness score. However, maybe the intensity that you are, because we have energy statuses, you could get a push day, maintain day, recover day. People are exploring, well, what does it mean to push emotionally? What does it mean to push mentally, physically? So that it isn't just thinking of yourself as flesh and bone. You are a multidimensional being where how you are holding your relationship to a moment is either creating a load on the nervous system or not, just as, eating poorly could create a load on the nervous system or not. So what people really need is a container for self-reflection guided by objective metrics and compassion. So that's essentially what we are providing. And it's also important to note that personality really affects the way in which people metabolize stress and challenge. So SORCE also provides a psychometric layer of understanding for the individual, the team, and the organization if we're looking at it as a living, breathing system, which we believe organizations are. We don't look at them as hierarchical machines. We look at them as energetic entities.
I think that's where your brilliance is. And I think the brilliance of taking the traditional science. Now, I live in the science. I go for a number, and if I'm working with a team, I've got this investment of, I don't know, $4,000 to $10,000 in hardware that we have to bring up to speed. And all of a sudden I finally get numbers and I can and we can make very accurate predictions on athletic performance. It's very clear. But I'll tell you what I love about your product and I love about what you've done is the brilliance of your 3 phases. Push, rest, and what was your second one? I'm sorry, I'm blanking.
Push, maintain, and recover. Yeah.
That's it. Push, maintain, and recover.
Push, maintain, and recover.
And you know what? You didn't sit around and wait for the scientists to say, you know what? No, you're not high parasympathetic, you're low parasympathetic or vagal tone or things like that. You put it in layman's terms and you've operationalized it. And not only that, you've done it using the damn camera on a phone. Now, if you've seen my webinars, this is a very sound assessment tool. The data supports this. But you've taken a very simple instrument that everybody has in their pocket. You've created a very simple process. You put it into a very simple result that's delivering outstanding feedback to your clientele. Where did that come from?
Where did the 1-minute assessment come from?
No,
or where did the
yes the
overall approach?
Yeah.
What you will learn, what I learned really quick because I've been at it for a while, is that the data alone was insufficient for the average user. And to me, solving the human energy crisis needs to be highly adaptable. So if you just gave people the number, they wouldn't know what to do with that number, nor are they going to have the time to invest in understanding what to do with that number. So we have to make it so that it is easy. So with SORCE, you do a 1 minute finger to camera assessment. You will then get an energy status based off of your individual baseline. We're not comparing you to anybody else. HRV only really has meaning when you're comparing yourself to yourself over time. Trends are where the meaning making really comes from in HRV. And so once you get that energy status, you'll also get a 1 to 2 minute audio tip that tells you how to align your readiness, your energetic needs with your actions. Because again, people can know, like when people have and I love these products, but I'm overly leveraged and overly indexed in the nerdiness of biotech and biohacking. Most people are not. So you just need to make it so 1, 2, 3, you need to get it complete in less than 3 minutes a day. And this is how we can start to scale it. Anything else is going to be for specialized groups like the ones that you work with, Don. Like you get to sit with your athletes and you get to understand what their readiness score is. And you probably will look at their training protocols, but you can probably also feel if something else is afoot. You can probably feel if they are compromised mentally, emotionally, spiritually, if something relationally is happening, And so you are doing a lot of the energetic literacy assessments intuitively because you are who you are. But organizations can't get that level of care, for all of their people. So we needed to create frameworks and practices for the individual to start to reconnect to their energetic information, develop that interoception, and really start to self-advocate in a way that does bring and unlock potential. But the problem is that people had no idea that this dimension of self, A, existed, B, how to validate it, certainly did not know how to language it or take action from it. So what the frameworks do is say, hey man, this is a thing. And here's what's wild and what we teach as well is that our society, our system is very much, again, over-indexed on left brain logic, objective thinking. And a lot of the decision making from the right side of the brain, which is the emotional, intuitive, and somatic, creative, it's being left out of the decision making process. So we are siloing our energetic information from our logical understanding. This is a problem. Because unless we can validate our energetic information with our logic, we're not going to be able to be whole. So a big part of energetic literacy is reactivating right brain function and breathing that into how we live, lead, and build.
That's awesome. Now, let me jump in real quick because, I love your work on language because I believe language is the biggest hurdle for the adoption of HRV and autonomic status assessment. I think that's the biggest thing. Because again, people like me, we're hung up in parasympathetic, sympathetic, LF, HF, RMSSD, SDNN, which is just a foreign language to everybody else. And again, with my athletic populations, I kind of want a fourth phase. I want a phase where we're ready to trample the dead and hurdle the wounded. Are we ready for that? And, but the rest of the world doesn't go there. So we use a term that we've come up with called physiologic economics.
Oh, cool.
Where do I invest my time for the greatest return? Do I invest it on a treadmill? Do I invest it on a yoga mat? Do I just out walking with bare feet in the grass? This is where do I get my greatest return on investment? So your work on language is beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful. What do you think? Well, two questions here. Number one, do you find gender adoption of this pro-female, pro-male, neutral? Because I can see, listen, men, we grunt. Okay. It's, that's our natural language. Women communicate, that's the challenge that we have in relationships. Do you find adoption changes based on gender?
Such a good question. So in the state that it's in right now in enterprise, no, it's a really neutral. we've figured out how to neutralize the language, and frankly, the fact that there is an objective spine to the whole endeavor with HRV, that's easy for a masculine or a left brain person to really kind of easily adopt and believe, because there's so much science behind it. So as long as it remains science forward, and we don't start to talk about, like I've talked to you guys right now with way more poetry than I would when I'm talking specifically with a corporate client, because I really believe, this is just me, I believe that in order to get to wholeness, we need to be able to kind of speak the language of both science and poetry. Like, they are very complementary languages that if we can, like there's an author that talks about it, like daytime language and nighttime language. And it's like, to me, it just makes my whole brain come online, and I have a holistic understanding of what the problem is and how to solve it. But when we go into corporate clients, we're probably talking about it a little bit more with that more traditional logic-based language, and not as much poetry as occurs to me as an individual.
I think that's your superpower.
Thank you.
I had a question around how all of these practices that you're now teaching initially impacted your life when you first discovered how to manage your energy in a way to serve you. How are your clients two-part question.
Yeah.
How are your clients? What is their feedback, especially for those who have never heard of it and perhaps maybe even were a little skeptical about what energy? I'd had coffee today, I'm good. So what are the changes you're seeing?
So initially for me, I had experienced, again, the power of the acupuncturist. So my mind was already quite open. And again, I was a practicing yogi. And so I had a lot of room for alternatives in my world. However, what I will tell you is, so I felt initial relief that there was something scientific, there was something objective, there was something I could rely upon by which I would know. Because if I knew my readiness score when I was competing, I wouldn't have depleted myself and extracted from myself, because I was so willing to do the right thing. But I didn't have right knowledge. I just didn't have it. It wasn't available to us. So initially for me, it felt like a relief. Like, I'm not going to hurt myself anymore unknowingly. However,
Here, just a second. There's no group of athletes that run themselves and literally run themselves into ground,
literally,
except distance track athletes, cross country, with maybe the exception of swimmers. Swimming is pretty, they are brutal. But can you, and why do you think it is so difficult to get this adoption? You know it, I know it, the data shows it, but getting adoption of this at an elite level, whether it be in business or sport, frankly, is a handful.
And I know, and I feel like I know why now. So remember how I said this issue, SORCE just has continued to kind of evolve, because we're a mission-driven company, and the mission is to solve the human energy crisis. And the fact of the matter is that I know so many people that are leveraging so many practices of self-care, and they are still depleted and tired and burnt out. I had to go into looking at the problem again, because this isn't about just finding willing participants. There's something more systemic at play. And this is where I started to dive deeper into something called regenerative business, where I started to really click into the fact that how the whole system is organized is to function like a machine, where it's hierarchical, it can be very extractive. And it originated back, in the industrial age. And it wasn't a bad thing. It was like really, it advanced society in many regards. It's just that, just like efforting, it works until it doesn't work. And it no longer designing things to function like a machine, looking at things in parts rather than wholes. It's creating the human energy crisis. So the true solve is to start to shift from a mechanistic way of living and working and building into a living system design, And when you can do this, that's where you start to really unlock regenerative potential, meaning the existence of the thing is renewing itself when all parts are working in unison and in harmony. So right now, however, it's financial. People are so afraid of redesigning systems to function like living machines because they feel like they won't hit quotas and certain performance markers. And that is highly disruptive to the overall system. So that's why, all that to say, Don, you're like, why hasn't this taken hold? Because when you start to unravel grind culture, you start to get into these pockets of power that don't want to let go of, yeah. So it's like you start to tug on this thread and you're like, oh, okay. So if we unravel this system, the 1% isn't going to win as much because they're vampiring into people, and it is causing, just worldwide
It's
depletion.
it's the
We really got to
matrix.
look at this from a super high level.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
it's the
is. It
matrix.
is.
They're using the energy from the bodies of the people to drive the machine that they benefit from, and boy, I'll tell you what, I didn't expect to have that uh, uh, uh,
But that's when you pull on the
today, but
thread, that's where we get. Because why does this problem exist, and why aren't people so willing just to stop the extraction patterns? Because then they have to start to self-honor, they have to create schedules where they themselves can be adaptive and responsive. Then the downstream effects of somebody, saying, oh, I have a recover day, I need to go, just I need to provide myself more parasympathetic nervous system support, it's gonna maybe then create, some ripple effects of like when something can be delivered. And I don't think ultimately it has to affect profitability. I want to say that.
no.
I really think that what we are up against is a design issue, and the system itself just needs to be kind of built with adaptive and responsiveness into the design. And HRV, so how we leverage it is not only for individuals, but we run dashboards on teams and organizations. So I can look at the organization like a living, breathing system and know exactly what pocket is compromised, and you deploy resources into that spot, uplift that spot. Oh, I can also see what pockets have latent potential. Well, let's give them a stretch goal. But then how you're thinking about timing and delivering, because a lot of these things, you can't, just like with your athletes, there are certain things that you can really time well, for the big event. And there are other things that are a little bit outside of your control. So these are the things that, we are beginning to grow into and put language around and frameworks around for organizations that really want to build cultures that are life affirming. Because we don't have to sacrifice performance. We don't have to sacrifice finances, and revenue, but we do have to look at how things are designed and executed.
Well, and support the human asset. I mean, at the end of the day,
Yes.
that's what we've got to get right. And so what I hear you saying is that we need leadership to recognize the fear of a drop in performance when I go away from the whip or the goal or the whatever
Thank
they
you.
do to drive their business, and looking at the asset, the human asset, the person that brings life to the company, and you nourish that with energy, not just finance and not just limited finance. It's not what can I get this person to do the job for the least amount of money, but nourishing that asset in your company. You actually get a greater output. You actually get more from that person, because this completely aligns with my athletic models that I regularly go to
Exactly.
coaches and say, we will build in recovery as a tool for preventing injury. It's like, because that's the number one thing you got to prevent in athletics. You got to keep from breaking them. Once we stop breaking them, and we start to get that same dashboard that you're using, I go to coaches on a regular basis and I said, you've got some bandwidth here. You can turn up the temperature on your practice, on your,
Exactly.
and Most of the time, the great coaches look at me and say, I don't need it. We're where we need to be. We're getting what we need to do. And I think that whether this is, God, is this a red pill, blue pill movement moment or what? This is so exciting.
I mean, that's why I'm doing it, Don. It feels like nothing feels more compelling than this work. You understand me more than most because of how entrenched you are in athletics and right knowledge about how to get the most out of people. Everything Source is doing is based in the science of performance. I'm not trying just to give people a day off. I'm trying to unlock potential. Why? Because it's so satisfying.
Oh, yes.
It's so satisfying just to feel yourself come alive. And if we knew how to time efforts with more precision to unlock more of that, why? I mean, I want to do that every day. And so that's why we
Absolutely.
do that.
Do
Certainly
you notice that
intoxicating.
people?
Yeah.
Do you notice that people start to put up more boundaries
Yeah.
so they can really leverage their own energy?
It's a big part of it. It's a big part of it. And it isn't to take away from the whole. So the containers that we provide, because this isn't something that we totally just automate and give people an app and say, see ya. We actually hold people in coaching containers because having, I would say, a real human touch in this experience will ease people into digesting the fear associated with giving a boundary. There's so much fear around giving a boundary, or some people are just have no faith in the system that they give boundaries that are more like, just FUs when they do have more to give, because none of it is anchored in, like, it feels like objective data. And the HRV takes the guesswork out of where the boundaries really need to be, which that was something that gave me tremendous relief. We're not saying, again, that everybody should just take days off on recover days. Not at all. Because listen, here's what we know too. Just resting isn't recovery. Like, rest is not recovery. Like, let's say I'm really stressed at work, like really, really stressed. And I take the day off. But during that day, I'm laying down, I'm just worried. I'm still taxing and putting a load on my nervous system, opposed to me understanding the right knowledge and the science of performance. And I take that day off because I know that when I care for myself, I care for the whole. I know that I can give more when I really understand where my no needs to be or where my pause point needs to be. And that is my service to the whole. So these inner postures, and how it isn't just about slowing down and laying down or cutting out. It's literally about a total shift of understanding about how we can design in a way that feels really life affirming. Really life.
I love that this is, like, I think the second or third time you mentioned digesting stress and metabolizing our emotions. And I want to spend a little bit of time on that because these are words that are often associated with, I digest my food. But we don't really know or aware that emotions are such things that we need to metabolize and sit with. Majority of our people like to escape them, just like, I'll put it on the back burner.
Yeah.
Or just try not to think about it. Yet it's still taxing our emotions unless we actually do sit and metabolize them. Can you share a little bit about how you teach individuals or groups? Because I believe in the group setting, it's even more powerful to have that vulnerable support. How do you go about helping people digest their emotions?
So when people get on the journey of energetic literacy, they start to take their HRV score every single day, but they also do what are called energetic literacy assessments, where we're looking at 5 stages of behavior change in 3 different dimensions of being. So the 3 dimensions are connection to myself, the next dimension is connection to others, and then the final dimension is connection to work. And then we have them look at 5 stages of behavior change. Their willingness to actually be open to learn about their energy, relation to self, other, or work. We want them to look at their awareness, their ability to just be aware of energy. Because again, some people are disassociated or disembodied. They've been taught to unsee all this information. So the awareness isn't there. So how can I get them to act with energetic integrity or like it's just so we need them to become aware. We need to introduce the concept of your body is a tuning fork and it's emanating energetic information. So we just want to become aware of how it's running. Are you feeling that in your belly? Are you feeling that in your throat? When you talk to this person, does it make your back tense? That's all in that stage. Awareness. Then we want to work articulation. Okay, so that feeling in your throat, can you give it language? What is it? What does it want to speak? What does it want to say? And then we get people to take action from that energetic information. So if it's like, I really need to speak a boundary, if they don't do it, their body mind vehicle is still going to be ringing the bell because your body is so intelligent. It really is looking for homeostasis all the time. Your body is so trustworthy. But all the signals have gotten all like wonkadoo because our whole system has taught us to unsee that part in order to be successful or to gain safety or to be worthy. So then we take that knowing and we start to put into action, and that's when your life starts to really change. And then the last stage is reflection, looking back on how that whole cycle then unlocked your potential, your performance, your evolution, your regeneration. So that's how we get it done.
Love that. I
Thank you.
had something similar in my life recently, and I was just like, thank you.
Yeah.
It's so important, and you're so right. People realize and notice that as soon as we have this certain circumstance, I sort of feel this heaviness in my chest.
Yes.
And I'm like, that is more of the reason that we need to sit with it and figure it out and try to overcome it so you can be comfortable and realize that this situation doesn't have to feel so uncomfortable. So thank you for sharing that. And I think it's
Yes.
wonderful.
And thank you for sharing that because I a big part of this is getting people again to sit with themselves long enough and validate that this is a process and that it might feel a little awkward and like you have your Bambi legs, but this is literally you bring the right side of your brain online and you will feel more whole and cohesive and coherent when you do this.
Jessica, tell me about the leader of the organization that adopts this because
Great question.
because I go back to and again we're going to jump back and forth from corporate to athletics, and it takes a leader that number one is not fearful, is progressive, ready to move forward. It takes a leader who recognizes we've just about wrung out everything we can get out of the existing system that we're in. And I think about athletics that if you go back to the NBA and load management, so load management's a really big deal in the NBA, and there's a lot of fans out there that are just all butthurt over the fact that they paid their $200 to go see someone play in a game, and they're not playing. That's a lot of pressure from the system. Okay, it's a lot of pressure, and the coach. So the athlete's got a little bit more power than most people. The athlete's got the multi-million-dollar contract, and they can say, you know what, I'm not going there. And it's not a feeling anymore. We now have data to back this up. But it takes a coach or a leader that has the gumption to say, no, this team is my asset. It's not the bank account, it's the humans. And what is it about that leader that makes them so different?
Yeah, we're looking for the Phil Jacksons, of corporate. Right. That's who we're looking for. I would say progressive, forward thinking, high performing, and at risk. Because the pain has to be there in order for somebody to start to open to another way. And here's what I genuinely see is that people are in pain. They're in these environments and situations and they're in pain. And they're understanding that self-sacrificing is no longer a strategy. Like you said, we have just squeezed the juice on this strategy and it served, evolution happened, and now we need something else.
It's time to
And what
change.
we are offering is the something else, is what is next, which is also a little bit of a return, which is a bit of the paradox. What we're returning to is designing according to nature, because nature wins. Nature is going to continue.
You
So we
know,
want to design like that.
I'm hearing this, and I'll tell you, I think one of the assets, one of the human assets that we talk about a lot, but I don't know that a lot of people fully understand, is just this concept of empathy. The willingness to take a step back. And there's a leader that looks at a spreadsheet and makes decisions by a number in a cell. And then there's a leader that takes a step back and looks at their team and cares about them and says, and you know what? We all want to work with that team. We've had this discussion. One of the themes on our show is what we call the 3/3 of life. First third, you learn. Second third, you serve others. Third is your time. I am in my third. My daughter has moved out of our home. My wife and I are in our third, and frankly, I am just now really starting to understand empathy. Um, and it's almost like we need is that the key element to getting the
Love it, Don. I think so. I think so. When you say empathy, I also think attunement. Like empathetic leaders are attuned to the greater field, whether that is the connection to other or the connection to the group. There is an attunement. And again, a lot of times these empathetic leaders, they traditionally have fallen into a category of compassion fatigue. So we worked with vet hospitals and vet techs for a long time. And it's really heartbreaking to learn that this group, because like when you're young and your heart's all innocent and giant, like maybe you dreamed about becoming a vet one day and, just taking care of animals. And it's a very distinct profile of person. But they are also highly codependent, where they will put other people's needs above themselves because they're so attuned to how somebody else is feeling that's making them feel uncomfortable. It's like an empathy overload. So they get this compassion fatigue, which then renders them ineffective. What we want to do is find the empathetic leaders that have really become aware that this superpower is also, there's a big shadow to it, and they want to support themselves in helping others, which is by, really fostering boundaries, timing efforts to perfection, giving people language about how to self-advocate so that person isn't always sensing in and trying to do the work for the people that can't do it for themselves. You know what I mean? So a long answer to your question, but I think empathy is a big part of this, and attunement would be kind of a close second.
I love
Would
that.
you be able to share a few red flags of that compassion fatigue, that burnout that
Yeah.
people might not recognize that it is happening?
Yeah.
We don't want people to hit rock bottom and hit, not like rock bottom, but like literally
No.
fall
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
and to realize that they've burnt out. Like, what are some of the first red flags we should be paying attention?
So if you don't have HRV and you can't see that your baseline has taken a hit,
Yeah.
and you just are doing like a little bit more self-study on it, one of the big tells is that more effort is not yielding more return. So you're efforting towards helping isn't helping, and you know that. That's a big red flag. You got to get really honest with yourself that my efforts, no matter what I'm trying, isn't helping. And at that point, it's really important that that person gives themselves permission to step back. And even if their effort is helping, if their body is sending them the cues of headaches, fatigue, it could be anything. It could just be poor, like your digestion gets really funky, you start to get sleepless. Like all of these are signs that there's a load upon your system that is compromising. You can handle it for acute phases. Don will tell you about this all the time. Like, we need phases where we are
Right.
getting overloaded. The art of this and the science of it is like, how long can I hold that load? When does it really start to compromise? Or when is it actually, creating, on the other side of it, creates the adaptations that actually unlock my next level? But
Yeah.
to answer your question succinctly, they need to be aware of all of their body signals: headache, fatigue, sleeplessness. More effort is not yielding more return. Those would be some that they can keep an eye out on.
More is not more.
More is not more.
When are you maladapting rather than adapting? Okay, this is the term that we use in athletics.
Yeah.
And business is I think this is easier in business than it is in athletics, because we have so many key performance indicators that we can put in place to say, okay, am I moving my business forward? Are these things happening? In athletics, it can be a little bit more challenging, but we do have the ability to look at workloads and things like that, and it's easy to look, and we can see maladaptation. And so that's the point that I go back to. Headaches, disrupted gut, all these things that are vagal nerve controlled, inability to maintain healthy weight, inability to, just all the things that go with this, that's maladaptation. Okay, rather than adaptation. Instead of waking up in the morning just on fire, ready to go slay the world, like I said, trample the dead and hurdle the wounded. If that's not the mindset, it's not adaptation. And I think that's part of what goes with that.
I'm with you.
Awesome. I think let me check the time. We're 10 minutes out of an hour. So I want to bring up the question where I'm curious if there's anything that you're working on right now that you would like to share that is maybe new or coming out, or anything that you're working on with your partner, Christy, on the podcast. Tell us.
Yeah, all the above. So we are running our brand new workshop for the public. It's called the New Performance Code, where we teach you how to lead with your whole brain and your whole self. It is a experiential workshop where you will walk away with a deeper understanding of yourself, especially around a certain topic. So we're doing that virtually on, I think it's August 14th. And then we do our fall cohort of the Practice 30-day experience. And you can go to SORCE.io for the details on that. But that's where we hold everybody in a 30-day container. We give them the technology. The workshop, there's no technology. It's just about educating people about their brain and getting them on the path of energetic literacy. The 30-day experience is more robust, and everybody gets their handy-dandy SORCE app, and we run group dashboards to really support the group through the 30-day experience.
Where can people find out more about you?
They can find out more about me, I guess, on Instagram at I am Jessica Corbin, I think is my handle. And then, of course, at SORCE.io. I'm also on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And thanks, Don, for doing the introduction. I'm so glad that he invited you on this podcast. It's
Jessica
been such a pleasure
Corbin,
to learn in so many points.
I am going back to the day we met, and I remember it like it was yesterday, sitting in that room, in that circle, in the chairs, and it was like, bam, like two super magnets, and this is just another example of what that is, and I thank you so much. Let's not let 2 years pass before we do this again.
I agree. I would love to be in closer contact, and I appreciate your generosity of heart, of spirit, of work. Both of you, it has been a pleasure.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. And for our audience, be sure to subscribe. Let us know if you have any questions, and comment what you thought and what else you want to hear. We are here for you. You can find me at longevityjournalist.com, same Longevity Journalist on Instagram, and Don is under Train, Recover, Win, and LinkedIn and Instagram.
Buddy, if you hear this episode and you're as impressed with it as I'm sure you will be, share it. Send this to friends. Send this to people. Send this to your boss, okay? Send this to someone who's progressive, who wants to do better. Send it to your coach. This is how we break through this process. Spread this. I am so excited, and I am so...
Thank you both.
Have a great day.